like to call this meeting to order, and I'd like to welcome council and staff that are present to the 66th meeting of the 7th Council of the Municipality of South Dundas, and welcome to those listening online. Confirmation of agenda, Madam Clerk.
Yes, we'd like to move 8, D, E, and F to discussion items, and also add online surveys to discussion.
Okay, and that's online discussions is F, and then G, H, I respectively for the other three. Anything from council? Seeing none, any disclosure of pecuniary interest, general nature thereof?
No.
Seeing none, the adoption of minutes, please.
Moved by Councillor Lewis, second by Councillor Mellon, that the 64th, 65th, and in-camera meetings of the municipality of South Dundas be adopted as circulated.
Any questions, concerns? Seeing none, I'll hear the motion. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Tonight we have a delegation from Alex Heyman from Food Cycler for municipalities.
Alex, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Hello, and thank you for allowing me to present to you today. Are you able to see my presentation on the WebEx?
Yes, we are. And welcome to South Dundas.
Thank you. Glad to be virtually there presenting to you tonight. I've been fortunate to be able to work with Danielle Watson from the municipality of South Dundas on this. We've got our presentation of about 5 to 10 minutes for you today, and then hopefully a few minutes of questions after that. Please interrupt any time if you have questions during the presentation, and I'll do my best to answer. So as a quick background, I'm from a company out of Oslo in the commercial food waste space, but tonight I'll be more focused on the residential side of things. If I just ask a quick question, I'm getting a lot of background noise in the audio. Is it possible to mute something? Okay, it just disappeared. Thank you. So the reason I'm here today is to talk about the food waste problem in Canada that for the most part falls on our local governments. Food waste creates a big problem that touches 3 places. First of all, our landfills, they're filling up quickly. That's creating significant cost issues for municipalities that are responsible for our waste management. Secondly, a number of environmental issues associated with the greenhouse gases emitted by food waste once it decomposes in the landfill. And lastly, food waste impacts the community. Having food waste in the garbage necessitates more frequent collection, and that can lead to animals being attracted and also unpleasant odors. So I think we could all agree that getting food waste out of the waste stream would be quite a positive thing for communities in Canada. A lot of people say to us, well, hold on, isn't there already a solution for this food waste problem that I speak of? Green bins have been around for a while now, and they tend to be a preferred solution for large cities with dense housing and economies of scale. However, there are a number of concerns that green bins have seen over the past while, including high contamination rates and limited study of the life cycle impact of green bins, including collection emissions. A lot of people do backyard composters, and those are really great. However, not that many people will use them, and those that do tend to use composters seasonally, so only in summer. And then lastly, a lot of people don't see a big problem with sending food waste to landfill. However, there are environmental and cost issues associated with that. So with that being said, I want to talk a bit about the solution we're presenting today, which is the Food Cycler. It's an innovative product we've developed that makes it really easy to divert food waste. It's all based around having a really easy to use user experience. You put your food waste in the bucket, you press the go button, and a few hours later, you have a nutrient-rich rich soil that can be added to your plants and gardens or collected for central processing. It's a small device about the size of a bread machine. It's quiet, it doesn't smell, and it uses about a kilowatt hour for each cycle. So again, a small countertop appliance that makes it very easy to divert your food waste from the landfill. So other than the environmental angle and the community benefits, one of the key things we highlight with our solution is the impact on waste management costs. And the above two numbers I got from a presentation that previously went to council about some of the various costs associated with waste management today. And below you'll see a comparison of what we believe waste management costs could be when using something like a food cycler to divert your food waste. So we believe it could be considerably more cost effective than traditional solutions. And you're also able to lock in your pricing for a longer period of time. Some other benefits of diverting food waste using something like a food cycler include having less animals being attracted to the waste, since if you take food waste out of the garbage, it becomes a lot less interesting for animals, and also potentially changing the collection frequency. So if you take the food waste out of the garbage, maybe you could switch to a bi-weekly collection. Another thing we think is quite important is changing the perceptions around waste in general. Waste is perceived right now to be a government problem. We put our garbage at the end of the driveway and it magically disappears by the end of the day. Of course, it's not magic, it's our municipal governments that deal with it. Well, something we think is very important is if you start processing waste in your home with something like a food cycler, you really start to notice how much waste you're generating, and it motivates people to reduce the amount of food waste they're actually generating in the first place. So that being said, this is our municipal solution. We've had some success with it so far in Canada. A community in Nelson, British Columbia, they recently did a pilot project with our technology where they had 150 households engaged in it. They each received a unit for their households and had to track over a period of 3 months how often they were using the machines and how much food waste was diverted during the pilot program. So in those 3 months, over 15 tons of waste was diverted, and residents had a really positive experience with our devices overall, rating it 4.4 stars out of 5, and the vast majority saying they would recommend the food cycler to others. Most people use the byproduct in their gardens. Some gave it to a friend, others put it into a backyard composter. And about 40% of folks also said that the food cycler motivated them to reduce their food waste generation, which we think is something very important. So with the municipal solutions, we have the opportunity to connect with Danielle Watson from the municipality of South Dundas and discuss the potential of doing some kind of a pilot program with the municipality of South Dundas around food waste diversion. And on the slide here, you'll see a summary of what we're proposing overall. The high-level idea would be to submit a project to the Green Municipal Fund to receive funding for a pilot program. And so we see this unrolling in approximately 3 key steps. The first one would be doing a waste audit in South Dundas to see what the current diversion rates are. And this is something that Food Cycler would cover in its entirety. The second step would be making an application to the Green Municipal Fund to see if this is a project that they would fund. Early discussions with them indicate that yes, it would be something they're interested in. And the third phase would be doing a pilot project if approved by the Green Municipal Fund, and if it's something that council would support. Overall, we see the cost of a pilot project being around $50,000, with 80% of that being covered by the Green Municipal Fund, 10% by the municipality of South Dundas, and a further 10% by Food Cycler. This would allow between 100 and 150 households to test out this innovative way of diverting food waste from the landfill. And from there, if it goes well, solution. Open to any questions anyone might have now.
Mayor Gardner?
Yeah, I actually was pretty excited whenever I saw this concept. I've heard about the food cycler before. Couple of questions. What can't be put in it? Like, is it all food scraps can be put in it, or is there restrictions around meat, like that type of thing, or can anything be put in as far as food waste?
All types of food waste can be put in. The only thing it cannot process is very large bones,
Okay.
such as large beef bones or pork bones.
Yep.
Fish bones are okay, chicken bones are okay, cheese dairy is okay. It's only the very large bones we cannot process.
Okay, and with this, how often, like in that BC group, how often did the families, or I guess it depends on the size of the family, but is this something that folks, would you have to use it every day after your day, or is it a weekly occurrence, or what was the experience of the testers?
So of course it did vary depending on the size of the household, but the average was running it approximately once per day. So it really became part of the household's habits. Like in the day when they turned on their dishwasher, they'd also turn on the food cycler.
Okay.
And this meant that those households were creating approximately 2 to 2.5 liters of food waste per day to have the machines run daily.
Yeah, okay.
Very large households would sometimes run it more than daily, and smaller households a little bit less often.
Yeah, thank you. This was super intriguing just because early on in my career I had to do a project on landfills. And I think most people wrongfully assume that when you put food waste into a landfill, that it just decomposes like it would over time. And as part of the project, I had actually come across a National Geographic study on landfills where they buried down the core of a landfill and they pulled up all this 50-year-old food that was completely intact. And one of the most popular things at that time was actually hot dogs. Apparently they don't decompose very well. But so it's quite interesting with this being a solution, because I think people wrongfully just assume it will rot, it will go away, it will but with the compaction and no air circulation and stuff, the food actually takes up bulk. And I could be wrong, but it takes up space. I don't think things have changed too much. So I thought this was great. And going after the funding, with the funding application, how many households could we have participate in it? Like for the $5,000 contribution, if we get $45,000 in funding, how many households are we talking about that could participate?
So our best estimate would be between 100 and 200 households. An interesting angle to look at during the pilot would be comparing rural versus urban and seeing how their experience and waste diversion habits were to be compared. So maybe 75 to 100 households from each. We would have the ability to scale the number of households up or down depending on cost. But Danielle Watson mentioned that approximately $5,000 would be a good amount to go after. And so we decided to structure the funding around that level.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Councilor Lewis?
After you use the processor every day, is it to be emptied every day, or is there do you wait until it's full, or how does that work?
Yeah, so after running the machine, you have what's left is a soil amendment, and I've got a picture of it up on the screen now. You've essentially taken the food waste you put into the machine and reduced it in weight and volume by about 90%, and have a fully dry, sterile, and odorless soil amendment that you can store until you're ready to do something with it. For example, you might run your food cycler all winter and store the soil amendment in a bucket until you're ready to plant your garden in the spring. So at the end of every cycle, you take out the bucket, You empty the soil amendment into some container, and then you put it back onto the counter, fill it up with food waste until it's full and you're ready to run your next cycle.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Council Mellon.
So for $50,000, you would be able to buy between 100 to 200 of these machines. There would be no cost to the 100 or 200 that would buy it. It would just be, it would be a pilot program, as I understand. You're proposing here?
That's correct. You may be able to offset that 5,000 by asking residents to pay a fee to participate in the program. That's how Nelson did it. They asked participating residents to pay, I believe, $100 to participate in the pilot, with the incentive being that regardless of what happened with the pilot, at the end of it, they'd be able to keep the machine, which has a retail value of about $500.
Okay, that was sort
So
of,
that is one way to offset the fee.
that was sort of my next question. Without this program, the machines are approximately $500. So if we applied for the Green Municipal Fund and we bought, let's say we got the 100 to 200 machines, can you reapply if we decided to go farther down the road with this? Like, is this a one-time application? So like, I mean, say 150 people get the machines. We find it's very beneficial. Can we reapply for, under that GMF funding again, or is it a one-time thing? So I'm trying to get to, like, if 150 people take on the project and then we, nobody else is gonna buy them at $500 a piece, can we reapply for that funding program?
Yes, what's really exciting about the GMF program is they have different types of project. And we think this project would fit really well into a GMF pilot type program, which is a smaller funding amount to prove out that a concept or technology can work. And if successful, it would set you up really well to apply for a GMF full rollout type project, which is further funding both grants and loans to do a community-wide rollout of the technology. So if successful, it really sets you up well for subsequent funding from GMF.
Okay, so it could be the first step into different funding sources, or, okay. Well, that's all for now, Mayor Byvells.
Alex, I was very intrigued when I seen this at first. I will confess, I do farm for a living, so recycling was part of the deal, especially when we had dairy, but still continues on. However, I am a devout composter of everything but meat at our house, including the winter. I will scrape out 100 feet of snow to go and throw the stuff in the backyard so it can freeze, but I always believe that if I can do it, then others can certainly do likewise if they have the room and space. Some people don't, and this would actually be a piece of machinery that would actually help in that regard. I think that a pilot would certainly be something we should look at. We've been at challenge with landfills for some time, and you're right, a lot of food waste does land up going in our landfills. And I'd be even interested to see if we can land up with some commercial getting into it too. But we got to start small and then see where we go from there. I think it would really work well if everybody knew exactly what it would cost to put that bag of garbage on the curbside every week. That if they can, apply for this program and get a reduced cost on a composting device that this is, it would save them down the road too. But right now we're not at that stage. But I think you certainly bring a good concept to the table. I'm certainly interested in pursuing it a little further and seeing if that's something that we can work with you on. I do have a question that came in my mind. How long have you worked with this piece of machinery?
Yeah, so this technology has been around for several years now. We we started off selling the machine ourselves in a direct-to-consumer model. And to help us scale, we've recently partnered with Vitamix as our exclusive direct-to-consumer distributor in North America. And the reason I mentioned that is I'm kind of guessing you're asking about the machine's quality and reliability, is that by working with someone like Vitamix, who's known for their blenders that last forever, it's a strong sign that technology's been tested, it works, it's durable and reliable. And, we're confident that in deploying it with municipalities, it can last long enough to get the job done. Did that answer your question?
Yep. No, that makes sense. My concern is, if it hasn't been around a long time, how dependable is the machine for long-term use? Because the biggest challenge these days with appliances is that we've become a throwaway society, and if it doesn't last, then that's not going to be a good thing for you or the people who have used them or purchased them. So just want to know your confidence level, and if Vitamix is involved, then obviously there's some confidence level that's there. So I had other questions, but they were all answered about cost and whether it can do bones and et cetera, and the power and how long it would take. So all interesting. Anything further from council?
No.
Okay, well,
If I just add,
go ahead.
one thing there about the kind of reliability angle. For municipalities, in addition to selling units, we also offer lease models that come with an unlimited warranty. So if anything does happen, it would be Food Cycler that's responsible for repairing and maintaining the machines. So if that's something important, we could discuss that model at a later time as well. Though I think that'd be more appropriate if we got to a stage of doing a broader rollout. I think the first step would be do a small pilot, see if it works, and then build out a great program from there.
Yeah, that sounds like something that's manageable, that's for sure. I think you have council's, I wouldn't say approval, but at least to go to the next step. And if you can work with Danielle on a program to see what we do in South Dundas, of course, funding is always key, but I think if we can do it, then let's at least give her a try.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to working with council and Danielle to hopefully get some funding and make this happen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to action requests. The first one's PE 2020-04, Justice Building HVAC.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Just a second, Dave. Motion has to be read by the clerk.
Okay.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gardner, second by Councillor Mellon, that the Council of the Municipality of South Dundas accept report PE 2020-04 to approve option 1 for the replacement of the Justice Building / OPP detachment HVAC system to ATAL Air in the amount of $20,295 plus HST.
You're on now, Dave. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. You received 5 quotes from 3 contractors for the Justice Building OPP rooftop replacement. Staff recommend accepting the quote from ATAL Air for the high efficiency rooftop, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, we'll start with Councilor Mellon. Any questions, comments,
I
concerns?
don't believe so, Mayor Byvells. I think it's fairly well explained in the report, and if that's the machine we need, it is a little over our budget, but as I believe, did we not, it wasn't quite, but we didn't have quite that much in the budget, but okay, drive on.
Councilor Lewis?
No, I have no questions. I know the rooftop they're talking about, and it's been around for forever, and they have to wear out eventually, and I think it has come to that point. If it was my decision, I would go with option 1 also.
Deputy Mayor Gardner?
I'm okay with the recommended option of one.
Okay, so am I. If there's nothing else, all heard the motion, those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Dave. Next one is ES 2020-17, sale of surplus docks at the Gallup Canal Marina.
Moved by Counselor Lewis, second by Deputy Mayor Gardner, that the Council of the Municipality of South Dundas accept report ES 2020-17 to permit staff to sell the docks, option 1 in report, as surplus equipment with the funds received being allocated to the Marina Reserve Fund.
Austin?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This report in front of you is in regards to the 4 surplus docks currently located and being stored at the Public Works Garage in Matilda. These docks were removed in 2018 and they're replaced with the current existing finger docks at the west end of the marina. Upon examination, staff recommend that the surplus docks be sold as surplus equipment, with the funds being reallocated to the Marina Reserve Fund.
Okay, any comments, questions, concerns, Deputy Mayor Gardner?
No, I'm okay with the sale.
Council Lewis?
Austin, down the road, do you think we most likely will have to purchase more docks?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I think down the road, we will have to purchase more docks, but as there's no immediate need for them at the marina or at the Morrisburg waterfront, staff recommends selling them as surplus equipment and using that money to put into the Marina Reserve Fund.
Council Mellon?
Well, that was sort of my question too. Like, I mean, if, to repair the docks is gonna cost approximately $220 per float. In option 2, when you mentioned install the new floats on the south wall of the marina, I'm assuming that's at the boat ramp, the boat ramp area?
Yes.
Yeah, those docks, some of them are not in maybe the best of shape, or they weren't. I haven't been out there as much this year, but there was some concern about those docks. Right at that thing, realistically, what are we going to get for those docks the way they are now, as is, where is? What, do you have even a guesstimate what they might be worth there?
So staff has done some research, and currently used floating docks that are built all out of wood are currently being sold for $750 to $1,000 a piece.
Okay, we have 4 of them, right?
We have 4 surplus docks, and they're all made out of aluminum. They have an aluminum frame with a wood platform.
I just hate to think that we get rid of these things. It's gonna cost us some money to fix them. We don't have to fix them right away, but I mean, in a year or 2 down the road, we see that we need docks, especially at the boat ramp. I guess, the Marina Committee, well,
We are the Marina
yeah,
Committee.
we are the Marina Committee now, so. That would be my only question as to whether or not they could be repurposed at the boat ramp. And, economically repurposed with new floats or whatever it needs there, if that's an option, instead of, selling them. I guess if we can get enough, would we put a reserve on these docks? I don't want I just hate to see somebody pick them up for like $50 or something. Can we put a reserve on them so that if we don't get enough for them, we can possibly keep them, and then if we need to repurpose them, then we can?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, the docks that are currently being used at the boat launch, they're much taller than these docks that are currently being stored in the Matilda Garage. So staff doesn't feel that these docks will be able to be used appropriately next to the boat launch, as their height is not quite tall enough.
I don't put boats in, so. Okay, yeah, yeah.
Yes,
If I
Shannon?
can. Usually our practice to get rid of surplus equipment is through gov deals, so we can definitely put a reserve bid on it. As Austin indicated, if we can get between 500 and 750, we can always put a reserve bid on it so that we're not giving the docks away for, $50 or $100, so.
Yeah, I'd like to see that, like, I mean, instead of, if all we're gonna get is $50, I'd much sooner let it, leave them set at Matilda. But if we can get a decent dollar, I don't know, put a reserve of 500 or something on it, anyway, that's, all Mayor Byvel's.
Okay, and I somewhat agree with Councillor Mellon, the last thing we want is somebody to come back in the next 2 years, or even the next 4 years, saying we want to buy new docks, and somebody say, well, what happened to the old ones? And somebody said, well, we gave them away. So, I understand that if they don't work, they don't work, and that's not a bad thing to look at, but, if we can put a reserve of $500 on them, then we're not gonna give them away, but if they fetch that, then at least we're getting something of value, so. Anything else from council? Okay,
We have to,
they've got their direction, don't need to add it, okay. And if there's nothing further, you all heard the motion, those in favor, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Austin. Next one, CAO 2020-13, stop up and close part of John Street in Iroquois.
Moved by Counselor Lewis, second by Deputy Mayor Gardner, that the council of the municipality of South Dundas accept report CAO 2020-13 to approve the stopping up, closing, and selling a portion of John Street in Iroquois.
Shannon?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So as Council will recall, back in September of last year, Ross Video came to Council with an expansion concept of 55,000 square feet for an estimated $15 million. Due to COVID and the uncertainty, they kind of slowed the project down, but are looking at ramping it back up and looking for Council to support closing a small portion of John Street, which is the west end of Anderson, west to where the other entrance is for the Iroquois building beside Ross Video. It's about 0.1 of a kilometer. What they're looking at doing is their current plan for the expansion will go across that small piece of road. And what they're looking is for the municipality to stop up that portion, sell it to Ross Video, and Ross Video would pay for all the surveying and legal costs, so there'll be no cost to the municipality at all. So if council has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Okay. Councilor Mellon, any comments?
oh, yeah,
questions, concerns?
I haven't got any problem with it, but when we reroute the water and the sewer line, if it's necessary in the sewer line, whereabouts would that be going? And will we have an easement to get to it?
Once it's transferred and once we're satisfied, we'll be part of the sewer and water relocation. There will be an easement registered on title so that we have access to it.
So we'll have
Yeah.
access to it? Okay.
Absolutely.
That was basically make sure that we have,
Yep.
okay, because if Mr. Ross or Ross Video, they're picking up all the costs for that, so as long as we have,
So, just as well too, is staff have been involved in a few meetings with their engineering firm, Eastern Engineering, on a couple occasions where we've had all staff there. So we're part of that process moving forward and making sure that they're aware of things that we require and that we assist as needed.
supplemental, if you will, Mayor Byvel's, well, maybe we don't know exactly where the new water or sewer line will be relocated right
They're
now.
still doing the design stage, but they're aware of our concerns and where we'd like to see it move forward.
Councilor Lewis?
If I'm not mistaken, Shannon, number 24 is the Legion and number 26 is the old municipal garage?
Correct. Let me just make sure here.
Well, Ross Video
Yes, 26 is our old garage that we sold to Ross Video 2-3 years ago,
Yep.
and then the other piece is the Legion.
Okay, well, that's part of the road that we never really used anyways. So, yeah, no, I have no issue with that.
Deputy Mayor Gardner?
No, I think the expansion is fabulous for South Dundas, so this works and make it work.
Agreed. There's no further discussion. All heard the motion. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. into bylaws. First one is 2020-92, kennel agreement extension.
Moved by Counselor Mellon, second by Counselor Lewis, that bylaw number 2020-92 being a bylaw to change the terms of Schedule A to bylaw number 2019-20, being the animal control agreement with the townships of North Stormont, South Stormont, North Dundas, and Kevin Kaufman, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Go
Thank
ahead.
you, Mayor and Council. I'm requesting a 2-year extension on the animal control agreement with Kevin Kaufman so that staff have time to look at another location for the pound. They started it a couple of years ago and they just haven't had a chance to get back to it, so we've dumped it now to the CAOs and they're going to be pursuing to make sure it goes forward in the next couple of years.
Okay, comments, questions, concerns? Deputy Mayor Gardner?
No, it's a necessary service, unfortunately, so an extension will give us the time we need to get it right, I guess, for location and stuff, so I'm okay with that.
No,
Councilor
I have no issues with this.
Councilor Mellon?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Byvells. In your report, it said the cost for running the kennel, so 65,000 will be split equally between the four parties. What about the standby fee? Is that that's not our own, that'll be split 4 ways too?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I am somewhat concerned that we're extending something that needs to get done. This ball's been in the court way too long, so I can understand the 2-year extension to get things done. However, that means the next council is gonna be faced with the big dilemma, and they're all gonna say, what happened in the last council, we didn't get this done, so, I think that within a year, we should have a plan in place on where we're gonna go. I think that would be fair to us and fair to any other, the next council coming forward. It's just been too long, so, and I know there's some challenges with the agreement with municipalities, but this time next year, I think we need a plan, because it's gonna take time it'll take a year to enact the plan anyway. So you got 1 year to deal with the old one and a year to get ready for the next one. I think it's fair to all parties concerned. I think Mr. Castleman knows what he wants to do by then. Municipalities know what they're gonna do. I know it's been long debated here. It's time. It's time. Anything further?
I gotta agree with you, Mayor Byvells. This has been sort of pushed on the back burner for the last 3 or 4 years, it's been discussed, but yeah, I think we need to finalize something.
Okay, anything further? Seeing none, I'll hear the motion. Those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Next bylaw, 2020-93, is North Dundas Dry Hydrant Agreement.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gardner, second by Counselor Mellon, that bylaw number 2020-93 being a bylaw to enter into an agreement with the Corporation of the Township of North Dundas and the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry for the shared costs and operation of a dry fire hydrant be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Thank
Anything
you.
further on this, Shannon?
Nothing further. I know from our last meeting, it did go to the North Dundas Council the night after our last meeting, and they were in full support of the agreement. So this is, as is, was discussed at our last meeting.
Okay, anything further from this council? Seeing none, I'll hear the motion. Those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Next one, 2020-94, fees and charges amendment.
Moved by Counselor Lewis, second by Deputy Mayor Gardner, that bylaw number 2020-94 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2020-20 to establish fees and charges to be collected, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Austin again, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This fee schedule is in regards to the campground winter storage. Currently, we have charged $0 for winter storage. What we've done in the past is just have campers put a deposit down. Their deposit is 100% used for their fees the following year to camp. So staff are recommending a fee charge of $25 per month to help cover the insurance of land, et cetera, that we are paying all year round.
Okay, Councilor Melton, any comments, questions, concerns?
No, I realize it's outdoor storage, but it's someplace, that's, I think reasonable, you know, and the money that they deposited previously, previous years, you know, when you go back towards, you know, their seasonal pass next year. Have we, you know, so, you know, it's well needed. Have we had any indication of how many may be looking at storing there? I know when this was brought in, I think at the last term of council, there was some interest, but I don't know if there's been if there is any, you know, interest this year for winter storage.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Currently, we have 2 people storing their campers there right now. I received multiple questions all summer long regarding the winter storage. And just with construction and a sewer line going in, campers opted to store their campers elsewhere for this winter.
Councilor Lewis, anything?
Whenever they leave their camper at the municipal campsite, they pay their own insurance if something happens to their camper while it's sitting on our site?
They do provide their own insurance, yes.
Okay, no, that's the only question, that's the only concern I had. Thank you.
Mayor Gardner?
No, I think it's fair to actually charge a fee. I have no problem. This is very reasonable.
Okay, and I agree. I think we should need to be fair to us and fair to others that are in this business of providing storage. I will emphasize though that if we're going to do this, that something is drawn up, that they are fully responsible for anything that happens to those campers on our site, basically giving us immunity from any issues. I think that's probably the smart thing to do. Anything else from council? Seeing none, all heard the motion. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda, please.
Moved by Counselor Lewis, second by Counselor Mellon, that all items listed under general consent section of the agenda be adopted as presented, save and except for items 8D, 8E, and 8F be moved to discussion items.
Okay, so today we have a letter from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing concerning the Municipal Operating Fund Phase 2 on COVID funding. A ministry update from the Solicitor General. We also have a letter from the Office of the Fire Marshal concerning staffing levels and firefighter safety. We have a petition from Township of Asphalt, Den, Norwood, cannabis production, City of St. Catharines, on landfills, Township of Lake of Bays, County of Wellington, Town of Wasaga Beach. We also have the Iroquois Waterfront Committee minutes, and then key information reports from our staff concerning the Business Retention and Expansion Program, the Recreation Fire and Permit update, the building bylaws stats for September, Trash to Treasure 2021 weekend in South Dundas, the cost of the Dundela Atco trailer move to landfill, an update on the Williamsburg landfill capping project, which is now completed and looks good according to the pictures. We have a budget to actual to the end of September with comments on the variables and variances, so very well done. Thanks for that, and a capital update. I think that's the end of it. It is. All heard the motion. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so boards and committees discussion items. I will take on county council from here on in. Deputy Mayor has told me she does enough, and I took her word for it, and which is very truthful. So, and I don't mind doing it. So we had county council today, so it was relatively fresh in our mind. We had a presentation from Jim Pine and Lisa Severson on Eastern Ontario Regional Network's proposed 1 gig project. It's something that they will are proposing to the federal and provincial governments for funding to provide 1 gig broadband to 90% of households in eastern Ontario. Melissa Morgan from Social Housing Cornwall gave us the Housing Revitalization Project. Couple setback things. Bylaws, County Council passed a new shared services agreement with the City of Cornwall. As most members of council know, we work with the City of Cornwall on social housing, social services, EMS, and we do provincial court services. We've never had a real good agreement with them with ways to deal with disputes, and the committee has recommended this agreement to County Council and also City Council. City Council will consider it at their next meeting. Sign bylaw was also debated this morning with few changes. The key one for South Dundas and all municipalities is that there will be lower tier sign off on all new sign permits. And it was also strengthened to make sure that any new signs complied with all applicable laws, including building code and municipal zoning bylaws. So it's not going to fix what we have in South Dundas currently, because you can't go back on it except for the lighting. There's no grandfathering on it. So if it is an issue with traffic, the counties will still deal with it. But from the other issues, we will have to continue on with it. But hopefully down the road it will work out better for us and everyone else. There was also official plan amendment number 4 for Betancourt, which, if council remembers, is the old Elma Public School building that we passed the zoning bylaw amendment and did the official plan amendment meeting a number of months ago. We had a presentation of a draft procedural bylaw that included electronic meetings, similar to what we will be discussing again tonight. There was a slight change in it. At our committee of the whole, we determined that we would not allow electronic participation in most county council meetings unless everyone was involved. I brought forth the motion, or the notion, to allow those to participate like at hours under certain circumstances, medical, family, at the discretion of the mayor, or actually the warden there, and it squeaked through. So that change will be coming next time to county council, so it will be similar to what we're proposing tonight. As I said, it's 2020, and I think, we have to recognize that people try their best to come to council meetings, but we don't want it to be habit forming. But if there's a way of getting somebody to the table that should be there, then we'll do our best to make it happen. Transportation and Planning asked for a 2021 snowplow purchase to go ahead, which was granted. There was a big follow-up on guide rail spraying. We had an issue with guide rail spraying this year, which is the first year that the counties have sprayed guide rails instead of trimming them. The cost difference is fairly significant. It costs $8,300, I believe, to do it with spray, and it'd be over $40,000 to do it with manpower. So, however, there was a person that was not happy about what happened near their property. They have an organic farm and didn't want us to spray guardrails any more than we spray our roadsides near their property. So after much debate, it looks like we're going to come back with a hybrid model where we do spraying probably on the majority of guardrails, but on those that do not want it sprayed, we'll oblige them, and then we'll also honor the labels and stay away from water courses and wetlands, because that wasn't honored this year either. Surplus dwellings in prime agricultural areas was discussed, so for when farmer buys a property with a house on it and then severs it off. There was, in some municipalities, it has become a concern where they become flag lots or lollipop lots where the house is significantly off the roadway, and then basically you have a driveway and a little bit of land. Not a big concern, but there was some concern that wanted to make sure that the severances were big enough to, for some municipalities, allow the operation of hobby-type farms. That's, as this council knows, we discussed it under our zoning, and we decided not to have that happen, but others want to, so it was just basically a general discussion. We also, I also brought up the Morrisburg streetscape and the need for a 95% review of that for council and the residents of South Dundas. So I've invited Mike Jans and Ben DeHaan to come to our next council meeting via WebEx to discuss it, so council knows what's going on. We do have what they consider the final draft ready to go, but, you know, we had a commitment that we were going to go back and talk about the 95 and make sure that people knew what was going on. So we got that commitment back on the table, and there were some concerned businesses that we needed to, that wanted us to do so. So we'll see them at our next meeting, hopefully. And there was also the election of warden for 2021. So Warden Prevost had his name forward, and Councilor Fraser, or Mayor of North Dundas, also put their name forth. 2 rounds of 2 ties at 6-6. So names are put in the hat, and Warden Prevost won again, so he will be warden for 2021. And with that, I have no information on the South Branch Bridge, but I'm trying to gather that for you, Councilor. Anything further, or any questions? Yes?
When you mentioned that lollipop, those severances on the surplus farm dwellings, are they asking for a certain amount of acres, like, just,
The provincial policy statement states that a house, it has to have room for the house, sewage system, and water, or well. So that's usually about an acre, and that's what they look at.
okay.
They try not to add on farm buildings because of some of the issues that evolve, but I know of some that they have done it, so I think everyone is handled a little bit differently. And some lower tiers actually have more, councils say have more say over the severances also. They actually have as part of their council agendas where we delegate out to staff to comment. They want to try to also get the severances going through a little quicker because they tend to take too long. Some of the agencies drag their feet, some municipalities drag their feet. And if we can get things moving a little along a little faster, I know sometimes it can't. If it has a zoning, then zoning is zoning. You got to take that time to do it. But
I can see for the minimum lot size, and I know there's, I've been asked about another one that, where they wanted to keep like 4 acres. Sell the house and possibly 3 or 4, keep the house and 3 or 4 acres and sell the rest of the farm property. Is that, did they look at that at all, like, or is that sort of a gray area?
it's a gray area.
Yeah,
I know of, like, I have purchased a farm that it would have been a lollipop type severance, but the person managed to keep everything in front of the house. He's got about 11, 12 acres. And I've got the rest, so.
the official plan doesn't really like that, do they? They
Well, it's more a provincial policy
Yeah,
statement
the
that doesn't
policy
like that.
statement, yeah, the
Yeah.
provincial
They tr-
policy statement.
Yeah, they want to keep as much land ag as possible. Now, if it's rural, it expands it a bit more, but if
Yeah.
it's true ag, then it's rather tight.
I hope they'll take into consideration the shape of the land and whatnot, because sometimes keeping 3 or 4 acres is really not viable for an agricultural perspective, you know, if it's a weird shaped little,
Yeah, I understand too, so.
yeah, okay.
Anything else? Okay. Council Wells not here. Iroquois Business District Business Group was no meeting. Morrison BIA.
No meeting.
So- You're not South Nation Conservation Authority. You can't go as long as I did.
Yeah.
The floor is yours. Go for it.
Anyways, yes, South Nation had their meeting last Thursday. I'll try and find my notes here. I'll save the best for last. During the PowerPoint presentation, there's a controlled forest harvest on Halbert Road. If anybody in that area is wondering, it should be finished up by the end of this week. There's a lot of trucks hauling a lot of lumber out of there. They're in the process of doing a fall tree pruning and replacement, and it's ongoing on South Nation properties. The visitation in parks, in the South Nation parks, which includes Robert Graham and Two Creeks, is way up again through September. It's been up all summer and still way up, which is a good thing. We approved a new engineer's report on the Casman Weir and the concrete in the Casman Weir. There was a report done about a year ago on it, and it was identified that they need to go back in and have another engineer's report on that concrete to see if it's stable enough or whatnot. The Chrysler Marina, they're gonna be doing some dredging down there at Chrysler Marina, and South Nation's working with Chrysler Marina and the parks, I guess, as far as getting DFO approvals. What else is there here? Oh, they did a presentation on floodplain mapping and how the federal money they got from that, or will be getting from that, is used to assist in development areas in relationship to the 2021 federal pre-budget submission, and lobbying, I guess, if you will, to keep that funding going. That was done by Conservation Ontario, and they demonstrated how much LiDAR mapping has been done, and how much yet is still. Basically, our strip that we help pay for is one of the few areas that has been done with LiDAR mapping that can assist with development, and especially in flood-prone areas or and whatnot like that. So I don't know when we'll ever get. Thank you, Shannon. Yeah. There'll be a source water protection enforcement transfer agreement. We have South Nation do the source water protection. I think there's 13 or 14 municipalities that use South Nation for that. That agreement is to be renewed, and they'll be reaching out to municipalities just to clarify, make sure, you know, that they're still wanting us or them to do the source water protection and to confirm the agreement. The one thing that sort of jumped out at me was during all this pandemic going on, the approval on planning activities is like 3 or 4 times higher than a year ago. So there's a lot of construction going out there that South Nation does the approval on different approval and permitting reviews and stuff. So there's a lot of work out there being done. We passed the levy. The levy for 2021 will be 1.5% growth and 2% cost of living. That's on the general levy and the forest land acquisition levy, so it's a 3.5% increase. That amounts to about 150,000 more from the levy portion of it. South Dundas's portion will be about 2477 right now more. Over 2021's portion will be over 2020's. I sort of argued that maybe they should try and keep that growth and the 3.5% down. But the city of Ottawa pays about 80% of the levy on South Nation, and they were quite happy with the 3.5% increase. I think City of Ottawa is going to be a little bit higher than that. Their projected anyways, so supposedly. So, I wasn't very successful in getting, them to, I guess, curtail that levy, especially, with everything that, has been going on with the pandemic and, whatnot, but, so anyways, I did voice my concerns about it, but it didn't get the rest of the board approved that, so that's what the levy will be for 2021. The draft budget will be, presentation will be at the next council, or next South Dundas, or South Nation meeting on November 19th is their next meeting, and that's when we'll have the budget draft, first budget draft. I've never seen it go to a second one, but I don't know if you have Mayor bylaws or not, but anyways, yeah.
So before I turn it over for questions, was there any projected surplus for 2020 on the table yet?
Yes, that's another point I brought up. Right now, they're projecting the 2020 surplus at about 250,000. They were sort of somewhat like ourselves, being, I guess, frugal in their practices and whatnot, and anyways, that's a projected surplus. I asked if that surplus was earmarked for projects that just hadn't got done, that could be rolled over into 2021. So I think most, if not all, that 250 will be rolled over into the 2021 budget. So it's not really got any earmarked, or it's not any projects that are going on, so. Between the 250, that's the surplus, and then approximately 150, so, on new levy money. Yeah, so. I'll take your questions. I'll try and answer them.
So my questions and comments actually don't reflect, thank you for fighting this, but are they tone deaf? Like, what the hell is, what the heck is going on? A $250,000 surplus, 3.5% in a levy that we have absolutely no control of. And make no mistake, I started my career environmentally. I love trees. This is ridiculous. Like, this is ridiculous. And it's like ransom. It literally is ransom. And I don't understand how an organization that folks love, people love South Nation, why they would not look at what is going on with the residents that are shouldering this. And I know it's just but it's not really a small amount for a small municipality. And I just, again, my comments are not thanks for fighting the good fight, Councillor Mellon, but this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. In a worldwide pandemic, where people are losing their jobs, and we're not even out of the woods yet, and to basically fine the residents of South Dundas for whatever projects, it should be status quo, as far as, and a little less with $250,000 on the books. I don't even know what to say. But thank you for fighting the good fight.
Yes,
but tone deaf, absolutely tone deaf.
I did bring up, the whole circumstances with, the hardships that COVID-19 has, had on businesses and retail and whatnot, and some of them spoke to the fact that there's still growth out there, but I don't know if you look in the paper how many restaurants closed in Ottawa in the last, but yet City of Ottawa seems to, at 80% of the levy, seems to be willing to trudge forward, which I haven't got those numbers. I forget what their portion of the levy will be. It'll be a good portion of that 150. So yeah, I brought that up, and I was sort of hoping they would maybe, tone it back a little bit, or especially use it. And I can understand what you're saying, Deputy Mayor Gardner. South Nation does a lot of good work. I think it's a perception, that we all tighten our belts here at every municipality. I know we did, and try to save as much money as we can, where we can. But
They shouldn't be able to, in my mind, they shouldn't be able to raise the levy if they have a surplus. They shouldn't be carrying a surplus, in my mind. That's provincially, I thought there was some sort of special provincial mandate where conservation authorities were supposed to get back to their core
Mandate.
sat in on a presentation actually about the core mandate and how it was supposed to reduce somewhat, and I just it's criminal actually somewhat. And like I said, love trees, love the trails, love everything, but this is unfair to the residents come budget time. We already have to make tough decisions, and to just have no choice in this is just pretty tone deaf. Anyway, I said enough.
Councilor Lewis, any comments, questions?
What can I say? I'm on the same boat as the deputy mayor. You know, after you did the battle first, I could kind of live with the 3.5%, but then you tell me that they have $250,000 in surplus. Outrageous, outrageous. And that's where I'm going to leave it. I can't believe it.
Well, I also echo the comments from this side that we thank you for doing the best you can. I sat in your chair previously to your being on South Nation, and I do remember the first time I was there with our former director, and they were putting it up 7% and thought nothing of it. And I did make the comment that if you did this at your municipal council tables, you would never get away with it because everybody can see you, but you're doing it at South Nation, and it's kind of under the radar. But I think we're bringing it on top of the radar. To charge more in this day and age and expecting municipalities to find that money, and we're going to be challenged as it is in budget. Have $250,000 sitting in a pot from this year. That means they as a reporter that comes to my mind always remind me, overcharged people last year. And then in the middle of a pandemic where times are challenging for some sectors of our municipality, I know things are booming in some areas. I won't disagree. City of Ottawa seems like they're building houses left, right, center, and everything. But not everywhere is doing that. Yeah, houses are selling, but and some are getting built. But that doesn't reflect all of society, that's for sure. And it really makes me agree with Minister Yerrick on finding a new mandate for conservation authorities, because they just seem not to get it. I think there's only, they can do all the good work in the world, but they think they use that as a license that they can do whatever the heck they want. But somebody's got to make them at least aware that there's a real world out here, and yes, the environment is important, but it has to still make sense for everything they do. So you can take those comments back to the board. I know a few board members, but it's unfortunate. Certainly sympathize with you being on that and dealing with it, but we thank you for it.
I'll make sure to bring the concerns that have been brought up here at the budget meeting, when I sort of did indicate it's sort of a rubber stamp budget, so I don't know if I'm making any friends back there by saying that. I don't know, but maybe that's okay. But I will make sure that they know that we're not overly happy with the increase in the times. Everything's rosy, everything's running good, and growth is great and everything, but I do agree with and I did mention that, Mayor Byvel's tried to say it in a way that didn't insult the city of Ottawa, if you will, but we're not the city of Ottawa. I mean, they got tons of growth and tons of, building, but, I think they have to, just because city of Ottawa pays 80% of it, I don't know if we should jump every time they say how much.
The only thing they still have within the old Conservation Authorities Act is that they have veto over budget, so they can overrule everybody because of their size. So it's rather ironic that the city people are so willing to up it, considering that the city is in a bigger trouble than we are. because of COVID and some of the challenges, and you just think that the province and the feds are gonna bail them out. But if you don't try to bail yourself out a bit, then why is it fair to everybody else to bail you out? Somebody's gotta pay it.
In the city of Ottawa, I mean, they got a 200,000 special levy on their ash tree replacement program. Another there's about, don't quote me, I think it's about 500,000 that's special levied on top of the general, and, and that's, this is what the city of Ottawa is saying, yes, you administer these programs for me, and it's special levied. At, roughly 500,000, I forget what the number is right off the top of my head, Mayor Byvelds, but it's, quite a chunk of change, and, they don't seem to.
I guess it'll take the guilt away when they fill in swamps to build houses and build houses on prime farmland, because there's a chunk of prime farmland on the west end side of Ottawa, and it's been earmarked. And I'll cry when they put houses on that, because it is the best farmland in eastern Ontario, bar none, and they're planning on doing it. Yes, Deputy Mayor Gardner.
I just, someone who's only been 2 years in this, can we not draft a letter to the province and circulate it among the all the municipalities are gonna get dinged with this. It's ludicrous that the province is the one who mandates the conservation authorities, and yet they're giving money to help with COVID, and yet here, like, it seems really backwards and sideways. And I think there needs to be a bolder statement made, because I don't think it's right. I don't.
Okay, let's see where the budget goes. I have a way to get to Minister Urick directly, so we'll see how it goes. I think he's working on it. He probably would have done it if COVID hadn't hit, and
Okay.
that's one of the challenges, so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Morse Waterfront Committee,
Not yet.
nothing from Iroquois. They canceled their meeting. South Branch, no.
No, nothing yet.
Carmen House? No. Archives, no. Tourism Advisory?
We met October 13th, so last week. We had discussions about what projects we want to earmark for next year. Could be some exciting things happening at not a huge cost, so stay tuned.
Okay, thank you. Economic Development?
We met and had an in-camera session to finalize the winners for the awards.
Okay. And Doctor Advisory?
Survey has gone in, so looking for residents to fill the survey.
Okay, I have a question on that. The survey, is it only online? Or did the clinics have?
Yep.
So did the clinics have a survey when the patients were using?
Maybe Katie can answer that.
Sorry.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Gardner. The clinics have been provided with information on the survey. So what they have is a small paper with a QR code and a link to the website if the individual would like to fill the survey out online. We also have paper copies available.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, Draft Code of Conduct Municipal Bylaw Enforcement Officers. Not there yet, so, must have went by it. Nope. Going through the best part, the budget. Oh,
148, roughly.
okay, so who's leading this? Nicole?
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
144.
Can you hear me okay?
Can now.
Yep.
Okay, before you, we have a draft policy for municipal bylaw enforcement services. This was brought forward, from a discussion from Committee of the Whole for our Administrative Monetary Penalty System bylaw, so AMPS. And it reflects code of ethics and policy for any municipal bylaw enforcement officers within this township of South Dundas municipality, sorry. It's kind of pulled some information from various municipalities throughout Ontario, as this type of policy isn't all that common, but we wanted to make sure that bylaw enforcement wasn't being overstepped. And if you have any questions, I can answer at any time.
Deputy Mayor Gardner.
Okay, have a couple of questions. I see where you've used the term discretion early on, but then I see in Appendix A, where it talks about number 4, I shall be exemplary in obeying the laws of the land in my municipality and regulations of my department. So if you're applying, if you have a bylaw, is it discretionary, or are they to be exemplary in obeying the laws of the land? It seems like a bit of a contradiction in my mind.
So the discretion would come into the inspection. If you go onto the property and there's kind of a dispute between interpretation of the bylaw itself, that's where the bylaw officer would have discretion in determining if there's a contravention or not. So
Okay.
they still have to meet the code of ethics under Appendix A, which is actually drafted by the MLEO Association of Ontario. But they still have to have some discretion. So, for instance, if your grass is 6 inches long and we have a complaint, is that too long? So, yes, you're in contravention of the bylaw, but there's no definite measurement of grass, so there has to be some kind of discretion.
Yeah, no, I understand the discretionary thing around this. I think what I'm getting at, depending on where our bylaw conversation goes, and I do understand we can't override building code and all that fun stuff. I'm talking about the stuff that we can have some impact in. I am wondering what the procedure would be. So say you hire someone 6 months in, and their discretion is pretty high, where they look at it and they're like, no, the law is the law is the law. How are, within policy, how would you deal with that if they're coming back and saying, well, no, I'm enforcing the law? Like, how are you going to have that like, how are you going to kind of, I don't want to say protect, because I have strong faith in your department, and I think you're doing a great job. But I just, for future, I don't think we should be designing policy around the folks that are there. I think we need to design policy when there's a problem. And I just, if you hire me and I've decided that it's a black and white situation, which many enforcement types view things, and you're coming after me and saying, well, no, you shouldn't have done that. That's a little crazy. 6 inches, you could have given them a break, kind of thing. And I'll come back to you and I'll say, well, I signed Appendix A and so did the CAO, and I've just been exemplary in obeying the laws and the bylaws and all that fun stuff. So how would you address that?
So under Section 5 and 6 of this policy, there is an option for the person to submit a complaint against that official.
Okay, and then the complaint process would be, like, would you do a peer review?
The complaint process is in line with our customer, what is it called? Customer feedback policy. So they have to submit a formal complaint and then it's investigated. Obviously, if it's against myself or one of my staff, it would have to be the CAO and possibly a member of council to do the investigation into that officer.
I'm through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not trying to be, I sound pretty nitpicky on this. It's only because when you have new staff and you have that conversation and stuff like that, and we're talking about hiring Police Foundation students and that type of thing, you will eventually hit that mark where you're going to get someone super overzealous. And then if the public complains, and then it's that kind of catch-22 where you're saying, well, they're just enforcing it, and and then we can use discretion, and then the public's saying, well, you didn't use discretion on me, but my neighbor across the road was, got discretion, and it just can be a very tricky wicket. And when I talked about this at the committee of the whole, that's the meat of it, where you want to put some policy into place where whether it's a peer review or whatever, you don't want to always wait till complaints, right? You want to be proactive in this, not reactive in this. So that's kind of where I'm going. Maybe it's too fussy for municipal whatever, but I can tell you I've hired quite a few enforcement types through the years. And I'll give you an example. You look at the St. Lawrence Parks Commission Act. If you came in and took a stick, you can be charged, right? You're not supposed to remove a natural whatever. And I did have some people that wanted to write tickets based on various things. So that's what I'm trying to get at. So
So we do have personnel policy that deals with employees who are going outside of their, I guess, powers and duties.
Okay.
We would deal with that under a performance review and disciplinary actions if that's necessary.
Okay, and that may be the best way to deal with it. I just, I said, there's been a lot of talk about that particular bylaw.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think the deputy mayor touched on everything that I was gonna ask, so I'm good.
Pretty well the same, Deputy Mayor, as long as we have some mechanism in there to checks and balances so that we don't, one person's idea of junk may not be the next person's idea of, So, yeah, as long as, we stay on top of it, we don't let, because we'll be the ones hearing about it, if there's a complaint, it'll be coming back to members of council, and we don't need that. I think it should be held the way, looked after within the staff, and, so as long as there's discretion there, or some way to curb the enthusiasm of an individual, I guess. I don't know how you best to put it. I'm not, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I don't really have concerns. I think what I want to see from our municipal law enforcement officers is using common sense in every situation possible, and try to be fair as possible, as equal as possible, and try not to get personalities involved, because in the end it reflects, if they get a reputation, it'll reflect bad on the municipality, and that's not really what we want. If people deserve it, and there are individuals that deserve, the full brunt of what we have for bylaws, then so be it. But for the most part, most are not in that ballpark, and we want to try to be as fair as equitable as possible. So, okay. Nothing else from council?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on. Before we move on, something I thought of. If this council is real adamant about not being happy with SNC and the levy increase, why don't we write a letter to the board and tell them that we support Councillor Mellon as the director, that we are not happy, and I think between clerk, if you wrote down a few of our points, okay, and then between them and communications and myself, we'll write up something and send it right to the board, and let them know that, that at least Councilor Mellon's not sitting on us doing it himself. He's got the full weight of South Dundas Council behind it. So, okay?
Yep.
We'll do that. That's a good start. Then we'll go higher up. Okay, key information report on the South Dundas compost sites. Danielle?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this evening in front of you, I have a outline of the South Dundas compost sites. We have talked about this in the past. What I'm looking for is a little direction from council this evening on how they would like to proceed with our compost sites. So we have two compost sites, one being in Iroquois, one being in Morrisburg. The Morrisburg one will be closing at the end of December, and the Iroquois one is not a functional compost site, meaning it doesn't have a registered environmental compliance approval. So the Ministry of Environment has asked that we either decide to make the Iroquois compost site an environmental compliance approved site, meaning we will have to move forward with applying for environmental compliance approval, which, as discussed previously, would be about $100,000. Or we would look at the Matilda landfill site as an alternative, which would be significantly cheaper because it does have an existing ECA. So I'm looking for a little bit of direction on how council would like to proceed. If we do move the compost facility to the Matilda landfill site, not only would it be cheaper to operate, but staff feel that it would be easier to operate at the same time, as we already have existing staff and the Matilda landfill is open more hours to the public. The only downside to that is if we did put in a compost site at the landfill, it would take away from the waste footprint of the landfill site, so something to keep in mind. If council has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, Council Melton, start.
I'm sure not gonna spend $150,000 to make Iroquois or Morrisburg in compliance. That's ridiculous. I know there's gonna be people from the both towns that are gonna be, upset that, we're gonna have to drive back to Matilda maybe. But, the long and the short of it is, I don't think we can, I'm not gonna spend $150,000 to make, that, even at $50,000, that's enough to make Matilda. And as far as the landfill and taking away from Matilda landfill, yes, it's gonna take us a while, I think, to get into that. I think if it's properly managed, the landfill is not just let it spread out all over the place, if it's, contained in the area that it's supposed to be and it's managed properly. We have a couple, 3 years left on Matilda before we decide how we're going to, proceed with the application, the expansion, or whatever we choose to do there. So I think, my opinion is we, use Matilda as our compost site.
Council Lewis.
I agree with my colleague. I'm not about to spend $150,000 of the taxpayers' money on a compost site. I think that is just outrageous. And $50,000, I understand that we don't have a long period of time yet with the Matilda landfill, but we have staff there, and I honestly believe that that is the place to put it because staff can see what's coming in and where it should go. And if we make a landfill in Iroquois, that means that we would most likely have to hire somebody to be there. So I would go with Matilda landfill.
You have Mayor Gardner?
Well, so you said a fine of $100,000, correct, Danielle? For the one that if we keep it open? Did you say
So
a
that's
fine?
not the fine.
Okay,
That is the cost to make it,
Okay.
to apply for an ECA.
okay.
The fine could be much more than that. I didn't ask the ministry what the fine would be.
Okay, I only asked that just for clarification. So I am a person that uses that compost site in Morrisburg quite a bit. When I dropped it, my 4 bags of cleaned out my flower beds this weekend, it was a pretty continuous drive with folks. There were like 5 or 6 other people dropping stuff off. I was actually surprised how busy it is. I was okay with Iroquois if it was a possibility because the in-town residents, Iroquois is not that big a drive. I have a couple of concerns. One is what Iroquois and the Morrisburg folks who use the compost sites, if they would drive out to Matilda. And 2, if we've, I worry about the footprint with the Matilda. We're tight anyway with the landfill. I think that's a big mound of brown bags of compost at the Morrisburg site. So I think it's going to take up some space in at Matilda. I think that may create problems, and depending where we go. So refresh my memory. We've completely decided not to do brown bag pickup at the curb, correct? It was just too expensive?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, that was what council decided when we brought the
Okay.
curbside
So I
collection tender. However, it is a separate, section to the curbside collection tender, so if you wanted information on that, we could bring it back and look at it for future budget years.
I mean, if council's already decided this, but I think whenever I was making that decision, it was because I was okay with Iroquois. That was, had volunteers, that had been run fairly smoothly, and I was okay with that. So now Matilda was not an option at that time, whenever I made that decision, or had that conversation with the rest of council. So that's my only, issue, is the fact that at that time, when we had that conversation, I was okay. I did not see it to be, as big a deal to drive to Iroquois to dump off the brown yard waste bags. Now we're having a further discussion, though, going to the landfill, dropping it off there. The conversation has changed somewhat from our original decision. So I'm not completely comfortable with using a landfill that's already on life support and adding a large volume, as well as just the carbon footprint of having everybody go there. If people even go there, we might have it dumped somewhere else. So those are my concerns.
Just looking at this map, Danielle, you'd have the compost site where you got it in brown, right?
That's correct, yes.
So if we start filling there, that would be part of the fill of the big mountain at the same time? Would decrease, or is it additional?
So what we would do is we would apply for an update to the ECA, where we would add a compost facility onto the existing landfill site. What that would do is not take away from our volume at the site, it would take away from our footprint. So right now, Matilda's ECA is limited to volume, which is how much garbage is coming in. It's not limited to its footprint. It does have an existing footprint, but the ECA is based on its volume. That's why if we wanted to expand Matilda, we could apply for a volume expansion and continue on building towards the north. I proposed putting the compost site at the southwest side of the landfill, because that's furthest away from our next cell development if we chose to expand Matilda.
Okay. That just clarifies that point. So we all know Morrisburg's out, okay? If that council's 150% behind that. That's gonna be not an easy row to hoe, and Councilor Lewis knows it. People will be, I've already heard some people say it's gonna be a challenge, but that's a mess. It's a disaster. It's the only way of describing what we have back there. The Iroquois site has been handled quite well with the volunteers, and it just, but, you know, I agree with Councilor Mellon, like, spend $150,000 to upgrade that to a compost site, the logic isn't there. And if they're gonna drive to the Iroquois site, the Matilda landfill isn't that much further in the big scheme of things. It would actually justify keeping it open from 8 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon on a Saturday, in my mind. So I'd be good with going to the Matilda site, but perhaps we may have to look at I guess a yard waste pickup maybe. Certainly not a brush pickup, because I think brush is brush and it doesn't handle as well. But I know if you got leaves or garden stuff that, you know, in a brown bag, maybe that's something that the municipality can look at, not on a weekly basis, but on a seasonal basis.
Yep.
And to be honest, we would charge the residents for that as a, we can't do it for nothing.
Nope.
I can't, I'm sorry, I just can't do it. Like, we gotta get to the point where garbage costs money, and, you know, we're providing a service, and all services cost money. So we have to come up with something that's fair because the rural residents will not be using it. They'll just put them in their backyard and let them compost on their own, so. It's unfortunate, but that's the way life works sometimes. But in my opinion, I go to the Matilda site and look down the road at where we can do for yard waste. Brush, no. Brush needs to go back somewhere that, you know, if they can't find their own home, they're gonna have to bring it to our
Yeah.
site and deal with it that way. Yep.
Yeah, I agree with what Deputy Mayor Gardner has sort of alluded to and yourself. Like, I mean, maybe, you know, we can go back and look at maybe a brown bag, you know, like you said, seasonal, like maybe in the spring or when, you know, in the fall, this time of year, you know, as with a charge. And I don't know, you could almost hire an outside contractor to go around on, you know, the second Wednesday of, you know, the month or something. You know, and just cost it out that way to pick up if people don't want to drive back there. I mean, they can't have that luxury of just, you know, being able to run the Iroquois or Morrisburg anymore. That's just not feasible. So, you know, maybe, you know, look at something, and I can see what you're saying, Deputy Mayor Gardner. You know, it's a little different than what we were originally thinking of with Iroquois. But yeah, we can explore, you know, pick up, you know, a couple times a year or something.
Yep.
I've lived in communities where they do the yard bag pickup, and they do it seasonally. Actually, it's only 2 seasons, right?
Yeah.
And it really promotes this community cleanup of people's yards. They do it, and you know, you can see where it's everybody's bagging it, and there's, you know, long lines. There's different ways to do it. You could have a pickup that goes around and picks it up, or you could have trailers where you have a drop-off day, where it's, you know, drop-off in Iroquois with 2 big trailers, and, you know, it gets taken back. There's different ways to do it. I just would hate to see people not clean out their gardens and not, you know, do all that stuff, and then you drive back. Like, Saturday is not going to work for some people, and you know,
I'm just
then
generalizing.
yeah, and then you've got people that, you know, it's I don't know. I just I know other communities do it, and I the encouragement is to, you know, to be environment. It kind of goes with the whole landfill environmental conversation that we're trying to have, the discussion about, you know, people being mindful and recycling and composting and all that fun stuff. It kind of goes hand in hand. So I just like I said, at the time of the discussion, I was okay with Iroquois, but now that's a different discussion. And the residents I've spoken to understood why Morrisburg, how it had been abused, and that we had to put a cap on it. And it is in our industrial park. And they were digesting the fact that Iroquois was okay, but now the story has changed. And I just, because we had, at that conversation, Danielle had even talked about the, you know, the possibility of even then you have compost that people can bag and bring back to their gardens and all this fun stuff. And it's just the conversation has changed a little bit. So.
Okay. Anything further from you, Danielle? I have an idea to throw on the table, but
No, through you, Mr. Mayor, I think I have a lot of information. I have some good direction here. I'll start the process for looking at the Matilda landfill and start changing up the operations report. And then perhaps I can put something together to bring back to council for leaf and yard waste seasonal pickup and how we could make that look moving forward.
okay, so here's the thought I just had in my mind. We are in the process of buying a truck with roll-off boxes. What if we move the roll-off box into the villages on a weekend, supervised, of course, because you don't want garbage in it, and have people bring their stuff there, and then we'll haul it there? Just,
So as much as that would be a good use, I do have a hesitation because you would still have to apply for a transfer station because technically that would qualify as a transfer station through the ministry. So I would have to look into that. I do think that there would be a permit that we would require to get from the Ministry of Environment. Depot days is what they're called in other municipalities. South Glengarry does one. They have to apply for a permit for a temporary transfer station, so we would have to consider something like that.
okay, you can bring that to the table and we can debate it further. I think that would be fair. Okay. Thank you. Next one is electronic, key information report on electronic participation. Ethan?
you, Mayor and Council. Through you, Mayor. On October 5th, 2020, Council discussed and debated the Bill 197 impacts on the Municipal Act, specifically electronic participation. And with that, you guys, our council provided direction to bring back proposed changes to the procedural bylaw. On page 2 of the KIR, the proposed amendments to the procedural bylaw are listed to include electronic participation, both for council experience, and I'll take any questions that council.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Gardner?
No, I'm okay. It's presented as we discussed. I think we had a pretty good discussion about it.
Council Lewis?
No, I believe we had a good discussion on it, and it looks good to me. Thank you.
The only thing, I guess, Mayor Bivels, I would, and you said that the county's level did it, you know, I made a note here in my scribbles that, I don't know, do we need to put anything in place at how many electronic meetings, you know? I like you say, you had mentioned earlier, I don't want to make a habit of, you know, well, it's easier for me to sit at, you know, my kitchen table than go to Morrisburg. But, you know, I don't know if we need that in there. I don't know if the counties did it. Obviously, if there's an illness, you know, or, you know, you're incapacitated for, you know, several months or something, but I don't know if there should be it's just a thought I had, whether we need anything in there to regulate the amount of meetings you can participate in electronically without, you know, maybe special permission, if you will.
Okay, any comments, Ethan, on that?
If council would like to limit the amount of meetings, that could be written into the procedural bylaw as well. I would caution that we don't know what the future holds. I think COVID has kind of exposed that as well, so I would caution council to limit the amount because of unforeseen circumstances like something like COVID.
I think what we've got written will work for now, and we can monitor the situation. I suspect this council won't try anything beyond what we're doing normally now, but I mean, you know, once it's written in the bylaw, a future member might look at it and say, well, I can go to Arizona and enjoy my winter there and still be part of council, whereas that's, you know, maybe putting in that electronic participation doesn't count toward the 3 months, or doesn't work for the 3 months. It's just an idea that I would put down. Between you and Madam Clerk, maybe you can kind of cipher through that. The counties actually were, as much as they were in favor of limited electronic participation, it certainly would be at excuse me, at discretion of the warden and clerk to make sure it wasn't abused. Yep.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it does say at the discretion of the mayor and clerk, so I think if somebody called you and said, well, I'm going to Arizona, you're going to say, well, that doesn't count.
No, as former mayor, late Mayor Barkley said, you know what you signed up for, so we don't want to make it, you know, at the next election, somebody said, well, I can, you know, it's wide open. I don't think that intention is there. The intent is not there, but we have to be careful that somebody doesn't abuse the intent. And I think I'm good with the way it's written right now, and see how it goes.
Kind of guides us through the process of when a staff member or a family member is sick, and how we proceed with ensuring that they take care of what they need to take care of themselves at home, as well as protecting the staff that are currently here. So we have been working with our labor lawyer in developing a policy. As I indicated, this is a draft. I know other municipalities are doing something different. I don't think there's one standard across the board, so it's changing on a daily basis. I know the counties have used where they've given an extra 5 COVID days for the remaining of 2020. Currently, staff have 10 sick days currently here per year. What we're recommending in the draft and looking for some council direction is that they utilize their sick time first. If they're off a longer period of time, we do self-finance our short-term disability, which pays 75%. That would allow them to go on to that. But one thing we want to make sure that we're doing is that we're not financially burdening the staff, because we want them to feel that they can remain at home to make sure that they're safe and that they're symptom-free, or that their spouse or their family member is safe before they come back to work. So looking for some comments or some direction. There's a few other, as I said, other little things that we're working on as far as contract tracing that we want to include in there too, because as we have people coming in to pay taxes or doing whatever, if they're ever notified that they've got a positive result, we want to make sure that we protect everybody. So looking for some comments or some direction from council on kind of how you want to proceed.
Okay, Council Mellon?
Yeah, I read your report over, and I was sitting here when you were giving your verbal presentation, Shannon, and I was trying to scan through. If, per se, a staff member has no symptoms, but maybe a family member tests positive, are they required to notify their superior at that point and then self-isolate at that time? At that point?
Absolutely.
That's it, okay,
Yep.
I'm trying to remember if I saw it in there and.
Yeah, so normally what's happening now, if there's a staff member that is sick, they are to remain at home. They contact the health unit immediately. At that time, they direct them whether to go get a COVID test or to not to get one and to go back to work once they're symptom-free. So we've had a couple occasions already where that's happened. Thank God all the employees have tested negative, but they remain at home until they're symptom-free. Or we have the telecommuting policy that we passed a few meetings ago too. If they're able to work from home, they sign that policy and they still provide, a service at
Okay. Like, that's, it seems, yeah. Yeah, that's all.
You done? Council Lewis?
The policy looks good. Whenever they go and get COVID testing, you do not get the results right away. No. It's just not so true.
No.
So they would have to stay away from the building until that test come back.
Correct. And usually what happens too is even if they are negative, they still can't come back to work until they're symptom-free.
No, that's good, Nora.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
And my question was around the telecommuting policy. So if you're waiting for results, could take 4 to 7 or 14 days?
Yes, correct.
So if they're able to work from home,
Right.
and I agree with you, Shannon, I think the pandemic has posed a lot of challenges, and I wouldn't want somebody, you want that community of practice where people are okay
Right.
sharing and they don't receive penalty for it. So I'm okay with the policy. It's good.
And so am I. I think we have to try to do the best we can with our employees on this challenging situation. It does bring something else to my mind. This is one thing for individual staff, but what if you have an outbreak? I'll throw Public Works on the table. If there's an employee at Public Works that, gets COVID, tests positive during the winter season, and he or she has been around all the employees there and maybe a little closer than they should be, who's going to do the snow plowing?
So we do have a standard of SOP for transportation, water and wastewater, as well as for recreation, that in the event that we do. If it's something that council wants, I can definitely share it with council at our next meeting, all 3 SOPs, just for council's ease, that there is a plan in place if, 2 or 3 do become sick. As I indicated to our director of transportation, is COVID's not going to, or the snow is not going to wait because of COVID, right? So if the snow falls, we need to figure a way to remove the snow one way or another. So we do got plans in place that I will share with council at our next meeting.
Okay, I think that's a good
Yeah.
thing, especially water, wastewater, transportation, recreation to a certain point, because you can always shut arenas down and say, so too bad, so sad, but not really the right way of doing things. But
So I'll share that at the next meeting for council.
yes, Deputy Mayor Gardner.
No, I was just going to say, are we not in a situation where the staff are still maintaining their distance from each other and we put the guards in the trucks and all that fun stuff, right?
Correct.
So there's a cause. So if the preventative measures are still being followed, in theory, you would think that there shouldn't be too many issues with that, especially in those areas where folks can't be replaced, like the wastewater and stuff.
Every staff member has had COVID training as well too, so they're aware of the protocols in place. But we want to be, proactive
Yeah.
to ensure that we have a plan in place if something does happen.
In those vulnerable areas, like wastewater, like the roads thing, is there checkpoints where folks are where people go in and visit and make sure that everything's hunky-dory? Because it's gone on a long time, and people are becoming I don't want to say complacent. I'm not saying the staff is doing that, but it's easy to say, well, nothing's happened to me, so I'm going to be a little bit more
Loosey-goosey.
Yeah.
So what we've done, to use water and wastewater as a prime example, is as throughout the summer, COVID was kind of slowed down a little bit. I wouldn't say we took our guard down, but it was a little bit more kind of freedom. But now, since the numbers are rising, we've kind of went back to where we were back in March, April, where we've got an individual that's solely at that plant, and they do not leave that plant.
That's good.
No staff goes in there. We've also got assistance from South Stormont, so if they have individuals that are sick, we would support them, and likewise if they would the same. And I believe the counties for the roads department as well too have discussed at the road meeting as far as providing support if transportation from a snowplowing perspective too. So that'll all be shared at the next meeting.
That's really
I'll send
good.
that all to everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Shannon.
Yep.
Okay, it's good to know. Okay, online surveys discussion.
Okay. Well, I thought I'd bring this forward. So there's been quite a bit of conversation. I actually received emails and a couple of phone calls about this around, and I'll use a couple of examples. One is the property standards bylaw survey. I have some concerns in the sense that, one, there's no context with that survey. So we put it up, the first question, people are balking at pretty severely. Like, they're like, what do you mean you're going to come into my house and inspect my cleaning and my whatever? So no context. I also, with SurveyMonkey, and I have quite a bit of experience with SurveyMonkey, there's no way to track who's responding to the survey, so it could be anyone. We have quite the following on our social media pages and quite a few of them are not residents of South Dundas. So I worry about that. I worry about, without the context, there's some people are just losing their minds, saying that we're going in to try and control their lives and do this and do that, and it's not matching the discussion that was actually happening at the council table from the residents' elected representatives. So they think that this is coming from us. So I have some concerns, and I have some concerns about what the purpose of it is, because you're going to get a lot of angry responses, and I don't know if that's going to be helpful to our discussion around that. So I have some concerns about that. I also have some concerns about accessibility. People always think that accessibility has to do with physical barriers, but there's a lot of folks that don't have social media because they're just sick of it, or they aren't online, or whatever the case may be. So I worry about the accessibility of some of the surveys. And I also worry about survey fatigue. So we have, 3 surveys going, or recreation just ended, but we've got the doctor survey, and then we've got the property standards survey. So I want to see a little bit of context that kind of gives them more information as to why we're doing this. I was surprised whenever I started getting Facebook Messenger messages about the property standards, and they're like, why are you doing this? This wasn't the conversation. So that's what I'm looking for, and I think we need to value our residents' time. I am Captain Engagement. I love engaging the residents. I think it's so crucial of any government, but especially municipal government. But I think we need to be careful about not wasting people's time and the type of engagement that we do, because there's just a bunch of angry people around that survey. So that's kind of my 2 cents and questions. I don't know if people want to comment or
Comment? Go ahead.
Sure, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to speak from a communications perspective on some of the points that you've brought up, Deputy Mayor Gardner. perhaps from more of the context of for property standards and that the CBO would speak. So with regards to your point on tracking or making sure that it's resident, so SurveyMonkey does allow you to track IP addresses. Of course, that doesn't indicate exactly who the person is. But if somebody was to submit the survey, let's just say 20 times, and I've never seen that happen, I mean, we would be able to track that and use some discretion. As a municipality, of course, any time that we take somebody's information, their name, their address, telephone number, we always have to consider MFIPA and CASL legislation. Because we need to know exactly what are we doing with that person's information. And when this survey was being compiled, that was an unknown. Is that information going to be used for a report for council? Is it going to be used to connect with the ministry? Since we didn't know that information, I certainly wasn't confident to be putting or recommending to take people's personal information when we couldn't quantify at that time what would be done with it. So that provides a little bit of context on that at least. With regards to accessibility, we have the survey available, as you mentioned, through our social media. We do have it embedded on the website so that if somebody wants to fill it out, they can do it right on southdundas.com. And our website is accessible, so if they need to use keyboard commands, if they are maybe visually impaired and they use a screen reader, they can use all of those tools while filling out the survey. I know it's a tough time right now with COVID, but obviously that does limit some of the options we can do. And I absolutely appreciate your point in terms of survey exhaustion, or online exhaustion really could be extended in this period of time with COVID. Anytime if somebody needs something in print format, and we have this indicated on our website on our accessibility page, we will work with that individual. And we certainly can continue to brainstorm other ways of communicating that still comply with safety regulations for COVID. I hope that answers from at least a communication standpoint some of the questions.
Okay. So for the IP address, so I'm very familiar with FIPA, so I get it. But then I question, why bother doing the survey if you're going to have staff time checking IP addresses? And I'm assuming you're only doing it to see if there's duplicate, correct? You're
in
not
that case, yes.
Yeah. So you're not able to verify addresses through the IP addresses, right? So you still don't know if they're located in South Dundas. I think with this, I think you're on the mark wanting to reach out to the community. I think it's a tool though, and we have a tool now with the recording. So I will be honest with you, for the people that send me a message, I sent them a copy of the committee of the whole video so they could watch the actual conversation that was happening, because just based on the survey. Now, you are dealing with a population that sometimes will only read the first 2 lines of anything, so you could have very detailed, but I'd really like to see a plan when we reach out to the community that really, I mean, in that I saw some of the responses back and people are saying, well, you know, and I'm only speaking to this, the property standards, but they're saying that it's, you know, it's a lot of it can't be changed because it's through the building code and stuff. So then my question is, why are we asking them to comment on what can't be changed? So that's a problem, right? So we're asking for commentary on something that they have no hope. So effectively, you're setting up council to have a bunch of disgruntled residents wanting to change something that they've been asked to have a conversation about and give feedback, and we can't change it. That's a problem.
If I can just speak to that point, Deputy Mayor, the specific questions indicated in the survey are not ones that are in the building code. And if the CBO wants to hop in, because I did work with her, she provided guidance, but those specific points are ones that commentary from the public or council could be changed. But again, if this, the CBO wants to comment on that.
I'm just basing that comment based on how you guys responded to people's frustration about being asked about it. And then the response was, well, quite a few of the Exactly. So that's where there's a lot of confusion around that survey. And again, I'm not saying that everything we do has to be rosy and everyone has to agree with everything. However, I just found that the public, it's a very good example of where a tool was created with the best intention. It did the exact opposite. Where, like I said, if you follow your shares, where you can see where people have shared it, it's look at this, look what they're trying to do. Who's going to judge if I've got lights on? Like it's really messy considering that's not the intent. And I know I can't speak for Nicole, but I would know that that's not her intent either. But that was the end result. So that's my cautionary discussion with that. I just yeah, it's not good.
Okay. I don't want to get into the weeds of specific surveys. I think this was a general comment on surveys themselves. I think, part of the challenge we have now is COVID, and, we're only doing online, so only those who are online and active will participate. I know if it's controversial enough, we'll hear it anyway, and we already have heard it on the property standards, but on other things, if it's possible to reach out other ways, then we should do so. But it's not a bad tool, we just gotta do it right.
Well, I know for survey, government-wise, anytime I've done SurveyMonkey, the context that was captured before the SurveyMonkey's survey was quite extensive. Like the actual context lead into it, to really give some background as to why, other than I just want your opinion or feedback. It was more like, okay, here's the discussion that happened during the committee of the whole, you know what I mean, that type of thing. I think, provincially when we did surveys, there was, in some cases, if it was going out to staff or even stakeholders, there were 2 pages of context before they even got to the survey. So that's all I'm asking for, is the context needs to be a little bit clearer.
A little bit larger preamble, I guess, to give people an idea of what they're answering.
And how it's going to be used, right? So feedback is just feedback, but, are we going to be presented the survey results with all the angry, how are we going to use that? So what's the purpose of any survey?
Perhaps the clerk might want to elaborate more, but I would think that perhaps the director of that department will come back to council with a report and include that information. I know typically in the past, those survey results are absolutely shared with council.
Okay.
Okay, any comments from Councilor Lewis or Councilor Mellon on this?
Well, I know where Deputy Mayor is coming from, because I've most likely heard it from people that she does not know. And they're right in your face.
Okay, well, and that's on a specific topic.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
I think a good preamble in any kind of survey is very important, so people know what they're answering.
Yep.
Question gives context, so. Councilor Mellon?
Oh, well, no, I hear what's being said, and I agree with it. I've heard from, the concerns voiced by Dundas Federation at their AGM, and, I tried to stress to them, this is not an exercise in us trying to make life miserable for anybody. It's trying to, make things better, and, but so, I said, I don't know, I said, get your concerns in writing, send it to staff, or take the survey or whatever, but yeah, sometimes the miscommunication, they were, like you said, they read the first 2 lines and, the red flags go up and, they get, all defensive and, they think, we're trying to, shut them down or whatever, so. I don't know, work with it. The survey's not my cup of tea.
Yes, Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think in all due respect that thanks for the comments, but we have had a great response. People have wanted to give us some good feedback. We've had over 300 people respond to the survey, so you're going to hear from the naysayers. You're not going to hear from the people that are saying, this is a good idea. We want to give you some feedback on this, but I understand that the preamble and that point's well taken, and we'll We'll do better the next time.
Oh, and I'm not trying to, I know it's a hard enough job to figure out what the best way is to reach out and get feedback. So my criticism's not so much that, and like I said, it doesn't have to be rosy stuff. Just the context is good and the fatigue. I would, because if you use it too much, then you know what I mean. Like then you lose the ability to, use it as a thing. So my points were spoken, so thank you.
Okay. Moving on, I have requested from previous consent agenda 3 petitions. First one's from the Township of North Glengarry concerning the Safe Restart Agreement. As the petition mentions, the Safe Restart Agreement with the province doesn't cover capital. And there's a concern at county, and they have brought that concern forward in a petition, and I believe that we as South Dundas could support this petition. It would be a good thing to have the ability to ensure that if we land up into a capital situation, that those costs could be eligible. So just asking for the municipality to support it.
Sure.
Yep, definitely.
Moved by Councillor Lewis, second by Deputy Mayor Gardner, that the Council of the Municipality of South Dundas support the resolution from the Township of Glengarry requesting the province of Ontario to permit capital expenditures under the Safe Restart Agreement.
All heard the motion, those in favor, opposed, motion carries. Next one is from Loyalist Township and concerns funding for community groups and service clubs affected by the pandemic. And as we all know, the local service groups, mainly the Lions, but also Community Food Share and any other community group that is trying to help public have been severely hampered in their ability to raise funds, and they haven't had any an option to find any funds from government. I think this resolution at least speaks to that and asks the governments to at least consider it, and I think that would be something that would be important for our service groups, that if that ability ever came along, that funding possibility could be there. So,
Sounds good.
Yep.
Yes, definitely.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gardner, second by Councillor Mellon, that the Council of the Municipality of South Dundas support the resolution from Loyalist Township requesting the governments of Ontario and Canada to provide funding to smaller local charities, community groups, and service clubs.
all their motion, those in favor, opposed, motion carries. And the last one is from the Township of Blandford, Blenheim, concerning unlicensed, unmonitored cannabis grow operations. We have had several in our municipality that have caused us concern, and we're trying to deal with them through zoning, but this resolution is toward the Federal Minister of Health and Federal Minister of Justice and Attorney General to deal with the headache instead of us have to deal with the headache. I think this would be something good for them to learn, but also for our local MP to support as well. So that's the reason I brought this forward.
Amen.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with this, and when I read this over the first time, and then when you asked for it to be brought out, which was a very good idea, the one part that jumps out at me, the license and monitoring operations need to adhere to. I don't know, the middle paragraph in there, which is, I think, where the real gray area is. Who is going to be monitoring this or enforcing these rules and regulations, make sure everybody's, and I think they're either, is it gonna fall back on the municipality, gonna fall back on, the counties and our OPP, or, Minister of Health, who's gonna, so I think this is a very good thing to bring in and to definitely support, because I think there's a real lack there of how these operations will be monitored and controlled, and the oversight onto them in the future, very near future.
Okay, so if we all agree,
Moved by Councillor Lewis, second by Councillor Mellon, that the Council of the Municipality of South Dundas support the resolution from the Township of Blandford, Blenheim requesting the federal government to amend the legislation regarding cannabis grow operations to ensure the safety and rights of local communities.
all heard the motion, those in favor, opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. No notices of motion, Madam Clerk?
No, sir.
Okay, before we go into closed session, I'd like to thank council so far for their work, thank all staff for their reports and participation, and also like to thank the public for listening and viewing our presentation tonight, or council meeting tonight. So after closed session, we will be just dealing with the ratification bylaw, and that'll be it. So this will be it for tonight, so thank you very much once again. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Municipality or local board.
Paul heard the motion. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.